Emilia lifted her water glass, just as the waiter placed a bottle of champagne on the table behind her. "Your reservation, Mr. Carter," the waiter said with a smile. She didn't turn around. Neither did the man sitting across from her. Ethan stared at the white tablecloth, so hard his knuckles had gone pale around his coffee cup. "That's the ring," he whispered. A second later, Daniel Carter walked into the restaurant with a woman whose fingers were intertwined with his. Olivia Hayes laughed at something he said, and Daniel leaned over to kiss her before pulling out her chair. The kiss lasted only a moment. Long enough. Long enough for Emilia to realize that every late meeting, every canceled anniversary, every guilty apology she'd accepted had led to this table only a few feet away. Daniel had told her he was spending the evening entertaining investors. Instead, he was raising a champagne glass toward another woman. Ethan exhaled slowly. "I bought that engagement ring 6 months ago." Emilia finally looked at him. "We don't move yet." His jaw tightened. "How are you this calm?" "Because if we stand up now," she replied quietly, "they'll tell everyone we're jealous. If we wait, they'll tell the truth themselves." Across the room, Daniel smiled like a man whose future was finally beginning. He had absolutely no idea his wife had reserved the booth beside his, or that the woman he was secretly dating had unknowingly brought both betrayed partners to the same restaurant. And before the first course arrived, everything he believed was under control was about to disappear. Neither Emilia nor Ethan touched the menus. They barely spoke. There was nothing left to speculate about. Months of suspicion had become impossible to deny the moment Daniel walked through the restaurant doors, holding Olivia's hand so naturally that it looked practiced. The waiter returned. "May I start you with anything?" Emilia smiled politely. "We'll order in a few minutes." She wasn't stalling because she was nervous. She was waiting because timing mattered. Daniel had spent months convincing her she was imagining problems that didn't exist. Whenever she questioned another late night at work, he sighed dramatically. "You don't trust me anymore." Whenever she mentioned another canceled dinner, he reminded her how hard he was working for their future. Friends praised him constantly. "Daniel adores you. You're lucky to have someone so dedicated." Every compliment made Emilia question herself a little more. Maybe she really had become insecure. Maybe exhaustion explained everything. Until tiny details stopped fitting together. Receipts appeared for hotels Daniel claimed he'd never visited. Credit card charges surfaced in neighborhoods that had nothing to do with his office. Savings they'd agreed to leave, untouched, quietly shrank month after month. Each discovery had been small enough to dismiss. Together, they painted a picture Daniel never expected her to see. Across the table, Ethan finally spoke. "Olivia's been saying she's organizing charity events almost every Thursday." Emilia looked at him. Daniel always had investor dinners on Thursdays. The silence between them lasted only a second. Neither needed to say the obvious. Their partners hadn't just been lying. They had been rehearsing those lies together. Behind them, Daniel poured champagne into Olivia's glass. He lifted his own, still smiling, still believing the evening belonged to him. Emilia slowly stood from her chair. Then she walked toward the neighboring booth. Daniel looked up just as Emilia stopped beside the table. For a heartbeat, he simply stared. Then every bit of color drained from his face. "Emilia," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded painfully thin, "what are you doing here?" She offered the same calm smile she used when greeting clients at work. "I could ask you the same thing." Olivia's eyes darted between them. "Daniel, whose?" "My wife," Emilia answered before he could speak. The word settled over the table like a weight. Daniel immediately recovered enough to reach for an explanation. "This isn't what it looks like." "No," Emilia asked evenly. Olivia leaned forward, trying to regain control. We're meeting about a charity fundraiser. Daniel has been helping with sponsorships. Emilia nodded politely, as though she were hearing something entirely reasonable. A charity fundraiser. Yes, Olivia replied quickly. It's all business. Daniel seized the opportunity. I should have told you about the meeting, but I knew you'd misunderstand. It was familiar territory. Whenever Emilia questioned him, the conversation somehow became about her lack of trust instead of his behavior. Months ago, she would have apologized. Tonight, she simply smiled. I understand. Daniel blinked. You do. I understand much more than you think. Without another word, Ethan walked over and stopped beside Emilia. Olivia turned toward him. Her expression changed instantly. Ethan. He looked at her for several long seconds. You told me tonight's charity meeting had 6 board members attending. No one answered. You also said it would end too late for dinner. Olivia swallowed. I can explain. I'm sure you can, Ethan replied quietly. The silence around the table became impossible to ignore. Nearby conversations began fatting as a few diners noticed the tension unfolding only a few feet away. Daniel looked from Ethan to Emilia. You two know each other. We met recently, Emilia said. How? She held his gaze. Because I decided to find out who else was being lied to. Daniel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For weeks, Emilia had resisted confronting him the moment she found the first hotel receipt. Instead, she'd started asking questions. The receipt matched a weekend Daniel claimed he'd spent at an industry conference. The conference had ended on Friday afternoon. Yet the hotel reservation continued through Sunday evening. That single inconsistency had led to another. Then another. She found restaurant charges in cities Daniel insisted he'd never visited. She noticed transfers from their savings account that he described as temporary business expenses. Each explanation sounded believable on its own. Together, they formed a pattern she could no longer ignore. Finding Olivia hadn't happened overnight. A phone reflected in Daniel's phone screen. A reservation confirmation accidentally left open on his laptop. A social media post showing the same bracelet Emilia had seen in that reflection. Eventually, Olivia's public engagement announcement led Emilia to Ethan. She had expected anger when she first contacted him. Instead, he'd sounded confused. I've never heard of your husband, he'd admitted during their first phone call. Neither of them wanted to believe the possibility. So they compared dates, messages, travel schedules, excuses. Every timeline matched perfectly. Their partners hadn't simply been cheating. They had been coordinating every lie together. Back in the restaurant, Ethan looked at Olivia with disbelief. You used the exact same excuse every Thursday. Olivia lowered her eyes. Daniel finally stood. This has gotten completely out of hand. No, Emilia answered calmly. It finally reached the right place. The waiter approached cautiously. I'm sorry, should I clear the table? Emilia smiled warmly. No, thank you. She glanced at Daniel and Olivia before adding. Please, don't let us interrupt your celebration. Daniel's hand froze halfway toward his champagne glass. His confident smile was gone. For the first time all evening, he looked genuinely afraid. The quiet tension at the table spread through the dining room faster than a raised voice ever could. Conversations at nearby tables slowed. A couple celebrating an anniversary glanced over. The restaurant staff exchanged uncertain looks, sensing that something important was unfolding even though no one had shouted. Daniel noticed the attention immediately. He lowered his voice. Emilia, let's take this somewhere private. She remained standing. I think we're exactly where we should be. Olivia pushed back her chair. I don't have to stay for this. She reached for her purse. Before she could take a step, Ethan spoke. His voice was calm enough that it carried farther than he intended. When exactly were you planning to tell me? Olivia stopped. He didn't sound angry. He sounded genuinely curious. I deserve an answer. She stared at the floor. I was going to. When? No reply. Before our wedding, Ethan continued. Or after. Daniel stepped forward. That's enough. No, Emilia interrupted. It isn't. She reached into her leather folder and placed several sheets of paper neatly on the white tablecloth. One. Then another. Then another. Hotel reservations. Restaurant receipts. Parking records. Copies of Daniel's calendar showing investor meetings that never existed. Matching dates highlighted in yellow. Daniel looked down. His expression hardened. Where did you get these? You left more trails than you realized. Olivia quickly scanned the pages. Every reservation matched nights they had spent together. There was no reasonable explanation left. Daniel tried anyway. This proves we had dinner together. It proves much more than that, Emilia replied. You stayed overnight. You traveled together. You celebrated holidays you claimed were business conferences. She calmly turned another page. The timeline speaks for itself. A nearby diner quietly looked away, pretending not to notice. Another stopped eating entirely. No one interrupted. Daniel took a slow breath. His confident smile had vanished. It's fine. The single word surprised everyone. Yes, he admitted. It's been almost a year. Olivia closed her eyes. Ethan didn't move. Daniel continued before anyone else could speak. We never wanted to hurt either of you. Emilia folded her hands. No. We planned to end our relationships the right way. The right way, Ethan repeated. Daniel nodded desperately. We were waiting until everything was settled. Emilia didn't argue. She didn't accuse him of lying. Instead, she looked toward the expensive leather briefcase resting beside Daniel's chair. I have one question. Daniel followed her eyes. His shoulders stiffened. What? She smiled politely. Would you like everyone here to see what's inside your briefcase? The silence that followed was different. Until now, Daniel believed the worst had been exposed. Now his breathing changed. Olivia turned toward him. What does she mean? Nothing, Daniel answered too quickly. It's work. Emilia raised an eyebrow. Is that why you've been keeping it with you every Thursday? Daniel reached down casually, trying to slide the briefcase beneath his chair. Ethan noticed immediately. Why are you hiding it? I'm not. You just moved it. Daniel's composure began slipping. This has nothing to do with either of you. Emilia took one slow step forward. I disagree. She bent down before Daniel could react. Her hand closed around the handle. He grabbed for it. Emilia, don't. She looked directly into his eyes. You've spent months asking me to trust you. With one smooth motion, she lifted the briefcase onto the center of the table. The metal clasps clicked loudly as she unlocked them. Every person watching seemed to stop breathing. The briefcase opened with a soft click. No one spoke. Inside were neatly organized folders, a tablet, and several bound documents marked with colored tabs. Daniel reached across the table. Close it. Emilia calmly placed one hand on the lid. I don't think so. He looked around the restaurant, suddenly aware that every movement now carried weight. This is confidential. So was our marriage, Emilia replied. She lifted the first folder. Across the top was the name of a limited liability company neither she nor Ethan had ever heard of. Underneath were partnership agreements bearing Daniel's signature. Olivia's signature appeared several pages later. Ethan frowned. I've never seen any of this. Olivia's face went pale. Daniel. He ignored her. This has nothing to do with tonight. It has everything to do with tonight, Emilia answered. She opened another folder. Property projections. Investment schedules. Projected ownership percentages. A timeline outlining when both partners would transition from current personal obligations before launching the business together. Daniel reached for the papers again. Give them back. Emilia looked at him. I already photographed every page weeks ago. His hand stopped in midair. You, what? I found the briefcase after one of your investor dinners. She slid a printed photograph across the table. It showed the same documents arranged exactly as they were now. I put everything back exactly where you left it. Daniel stared at the photo. For the first time since Emilia approached the table, he had no response. Ethan picked up another document. His eyes narrowed. What account is this? Emilia answered quietly. The joint investment account Olivia convinced you to open after your engagement. Ethan looked at Olivia. You said we were building our future. She couldn't meet his eyes. He turned another page. Several transfers had already been made. Each deposit matched the dates Olivia had told him she was paying vendors for wedding arrangements. Instead, portions of that money had been redirected toward the new company. Emilia placed another bank statement beside his. I recognized the pattern immediately. Daniel looked over. Those transfers were from the savings account he shared with Emilia. The dates matched perfectly. The money disappearing from our emergency fund, Emilia said, wasn't covering business travel. She tapped the paperwork. It was funding this. Ethan slowly connected everything. The Thursday dinners were meetings with investors, Emilia finished. The weekend conferences. Properties they wanted to purchase together. The canceled anniversaries. Olivia lowered her head. We were meeting architects. Every excuse suddenly fit into one complete picture. There had never been separate lies. There had been one carefully planned future, financed by two people who knew nothing about it. Daniel rubbed his forehead. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. No, Emilia agreed. You expected both of us to discover the truth only after you had everything you needed. Restaurant management approached carefully. The manager spoke softly. If you'd prefer, we have a private room available. Emilia thanked him with a polite smile. I appreciate the offer. She glanced around the dining room. But we're not shouting. The manager looked at the table. No one was causing a disturbance. No one was threatening anyone. Only documents lay scattered across the white linen, speaking louder than raised voices ever could. Daniel tried one final time. Let's go home and talk. There isn't a home to go back to, Emilia answered. She removed a sealed envelope from her folder and placed it beside the partnership agreement. My attorney has copies of every document. She set down a second envelope. So does Ethan's. Daniel looked from one envelope to the other. His face drained of color. You already? Yes. I only came tonight, Emilia said evenly, because I wanted both of you to realize there would be no opportunity to rewrite this story. The table fell silent. Then Daniel's phone vibrated. Once. Twice. 3 times. He glanced at the screen. His expression collapsed. Emilia noticed the caller ID before he turned the phone over. It read, Attorney Michael Reeves. The phone continued ringing between them. The phone rang until it stopped. For several seconds, no one reached for it. Daniel stared at the dark screen as though refusing to answer could somehow delay what was already happening. Emilia gently folded her hands on the table. I found out about the affair 3 weeks ago. Daniel slowly looked up. I didn't confront you because I wanted the whole truth. He said nothing. I already knew you were lying about the dinners. I already knew you and Olivia were seeing each other, but something never made sense. She tapped the partnership agreement lying open between them. You weren't just planning to leave your marriage. You were planning your next life before ending this one. Ethan nodded. When Emilia contacted me, I thought she had the wrong person. He let out a quiet laugh without humor. I almost ignored her message. Olivia finally spoke. You contacted him. I did. Emilia met her eyes. Not because I wanted revenge. Then why? Because if someone knew my fiancé was living a double life, I'd want them to tell me before I married him. The words landed harder than any accusation. Ethan slowly removed the engagement ring from his finger. He looked at it for several moments before placing it carefully on the table in front of Olivia. I bought this because I believed every promise you made. Olivia reached toward it. He gently pulled his hand back. No. Her eyes filled with tears. I never wanted it to end like this. Ethan answered quietly. It ended long before tonight. Daniel finally found his voice. Emilia, I know I hurt you. She looked at him without anger. No. He frowned. You didn't just hurt me. You spent months making me believe I was imagining things. You watched me apologize for asking honest questions. You let me sacrifice opportunities because you said we were building a future together. She glanced at the financial documents. While you were building a different future. Daniel lowered his head. Every explanation he had rehearsed disappeared in the face of evidence he could no longer challenge. No one at the surrounding tables spoke. Some quietly returned to their meals. Others looked away, sensing the most painful part of the evening was no longer the exposure, but the silence that followed it. The restaurant manager discreetly collected the unopened champagne bottle from Daniel's reservation. No celebration would be happening tonight. Outside, the legal process moved far more quickly than Daniel expected. Because Emilia had documented every transfer and preserved every financial record, the disputed investment funds were frozen before they could be moved again. The planned business venture never opened its doors. Its investors withdrew after learning the source of part of its funding was under legal dispute. The partnership Daniel and Olivia had spent months planning collapsed before it officially existed. The divorce proceedings were difficult but straightforward. Every unexplained withdrawal from the joint accounts had a matching document. Every supposed business trip had supporting evidence showing where Daniel had actually been. There was very little left to argue about. Daniel's carefully maintained image as the dependable husband and trustworthy financial professional suffered far more from his own records than from anything Emilia ever said publicly. She never posted online. She never gave dramatic interviews. She simply allowed the facts to speak for themselves. Olivia's engagement ended that same week. The wedding venue was canceled. The invitations were never mailed. Months passed. The legal matters concluded. Emilia accepted a leadership position she had once declined because Daniel insisted it would interfere with their family plans. For the first time in years, every major decision she made belonged entirely to her. One afternoon, she received a short message from Ethan. Thank you for telling me before it was too late. She smiled, replied with a simple asterisk, take care, and put her phone away. Neither of them had gained what they expected that evening, but both had escaped futures built on deception. Looking back, Emilia realized exposing the affair had never been the true victory. The real victory was refusing to let someone else's dishonesty determine the rest of her life. The dinner Daniel planned to celebrate his secret future became the night every lie he built was finally served back to him.